So let us start. So in the last class we discussed about different methods of measuring AP, then EI, then AC, everything we have done. Only one bit of elastic demand was left there. That was determinants of elasticity of demand. Means uh, demand will be more elastic or less elastic, depends on what. That we'll discuss now. So out of the 5 types of price elastic demand we discussed, 2 are completely theoretical, like perfectly elastic demand and perfectly inelastic demand. One is accidental or situational. It may happen at any point of time with any commodity. That is interelastic. But the other two, more elastic and less elastic, they are really happening, and commodities are either coming under that or this, either more elastic or less elastic. So we will discuss now the reasons behind a product to be more elastic, a product to be less elastic. So I'll be giving you some situations. You will tell that whether this product or that product will be more elastic and which will be less elastic. Okay. So let us go to the white screen. I'm talking of 2 commodities now. Let's say commodity X, another is commodity Y. Commodity X is catering to the necessary ones. Whereas commodity Y is catering to either comfort or luxury ones. So between these two, which will be more elastic and which will be less elastic? Means X is a necessary type of commodity, Y is not necessary. It is coming under either comfort or luxury. More elastic means what? If 10% hike in price is taking place, demand is falling by more than 10%. Let's say 20%, 30% like this. Yeah, if 10% fall in demand is taking place, if price is taking place, then demand is going up by maybe 15%, 20% like that. So in which case, demand will be more elastic. In which case, demand will be less elastic.
So for X, it will be less elastic.
Because the commodity is very good. Is because the commodity is necessary, our demand will be less if price goes up, but it will not be that much, so that the percentage change in demand will be more than the percentage change in quantity demand. Therefore, he is right that necessary commodities, commodities catering to the necessary ones are less elastic, whereas commodities catering to comfort or luxury ones are more elastic. So the first determinant will be the nature of commodity. No? Nature of commodity determines the extent of elasticity. Okay. Second, I'm going on one more situation. Let's say 2 commodities X and Y. X is being utilized on multiple heads, multiple purposes, like electricity. We can put electricity on either lighting or fan, and it will be odd or on and fan. Then for heating, for cooling, lot many purposes, lot many heads are there on which this electricity can be put. Means a commodity is having multiple heads of usage, as against multi-use. As against Y is a commodity which is single use. Single use means single head use. Means the commodity is meant for only one thing, That is the thing for which it is basically designed. The cycle, you are having a cycle. Only cycle is required for moving from one place to another. Okay. So you just between this commodity X and Y, which will be more elastic, which will be less elastic. X is meant for multi-purpose uses because the commodity is so designed that it can be used in multiple heads, and Y is designed for only one head. So which can be more elastic?
So again, this multi-purpose will be less elastic.
Multi-purpose will be less elastic. Okay, anybody else who is going the other way? If more elastic means what? If price goes up, demand will be falling in a greater way. If price comes down, demand will be rising in a greater way. Let's take the example of electricity. Suppose price of electricity unit consumption, the tariff goes down. Then what you will be doing? You will be demanding electricity for all possible heads for using it in lighting, fanning, heating, cooling, etc. Whereas if its price goes up, we'll be demanding it or requiring it for what? Only the basic necessities or important items. Like you can say lighting and fanning is must. And if at all we are going for cooling AC, then we'll be using it in an economical way. So that means what? We are squeezing the demand because the price is going up. Whereas in case of price is going down, we are using it on all possible heads. As against the commodity Y, which can be put into only single usage. And if its price goes up, we can minimize or reduce the usage from this head only. And if this head is a bit necessary type of head, we cannot reduce much. Whereas in case of a EX, what is the advantage? There are n number of alternatives. Out of them, maybe few are very urgent, very essential, but others are not that essential. If price goes up, we'll reduce all those things, and if price goes down, we'll be using it in all possible ways. So it means demand goes up in a huge way, greater way. If price comes down, only if the product is a multi-purpose used commodity. So could you follow this? Because you are having the different view, but could you follow this? You see, before the installation of meter, electricity meter in our houses, maybe 30 years, 40 years back, there was no meter system. So we were using electricity for all purposes, and unit consumption was huge. But now, because of this meter, what we are doing, we are using in a calculated way, like light and fan, we cannot condense it, we cannot compromise it with it. But in other purposes, we are compromising. We are doing the economical usage of that one. So the second point is the uh, single use versus the multi-use of the product. So if the commodity is in multi-use purpose, then it will be more elastic as compared to single use. Then third is suppose X is a commodity which is having its substitute. Let's say P is a substitute in the market, but Y no substitute. Then which one will be more elastic, which will be less elastic?
So no substitute commodities will be less elastic.
No substitute commodity will be less elastic because if that commodity is required for you, then obviously you have to demand and you cannot switch it for somebody else, something else. But in case of substitute, if its price goes up, then some of the consumers may change the consumption from X to that P, commodity P, which is the substitute of X. We can say that if the commodity in question is having substitute in the market, then it is more elastic as compared to a commodity which does not have any substitute, availability of substitute. So this is multi versus single use. Third is availability of substitutes. Okay, then if the market is narrowly defined vis-a-vis or with respect to versus market is broadly defined. Narrowly versus broadly defined market means suppose commodity X is in this market, narrowly defined market. Commodity Y is in broadly defined market. I am giving the example. Let's say X is a food item. It is a food item. X stands for a food, whereas Y stands for fast food. So what I should narrowly, X I took narrowly. Which one took narrowly?
So X.
If X narrowly, then it will reverse. X and Y. Suppose X is narrowly defined market, narrowly defined. Y is broadly defined. Broadly defined market. It means X will be, let's say, fast food, whereas Y is food. Now, can you tell between these two which will be more elastic? Fast food is a subset of food. If at all price of fast food goes up, if we are not addicted to fast food, then maybe we can switch the fast food to something else because some other items are there also under food. That means fast food is a narrowly defined market, and in this case, if price changes, it will be more elastic. Whereas food means if food is required. If the price of food item is going up, then it will be less elastic. So we can say, in this sense, if a product is coming under a narrowly defined market, it will be more elastic as compared to a product coming under the broadly defined market. This is another point. Let's say market definition of market. How we can say how narrowly or how broadly they are defined. The next is the time period. In the long run and in short run. Suppose you are consuming a product for just a few days back, a few weeks back, and somebody else is there who is consuming that for maybe years together, maybe. Then if at all, the price increases, the price decreases, whose demand will be more sensitive, more changing? From a person A, a person B. Person A is consuming, person A is consuming for since short time, maybe for a couple of days or weeks, something like that, short, and B is consuming for long. Because you are consuming for a couple of days only, you have not studied the product or experienced the product, the optimal. Therefore, if metal price goes up, you will not be that much interested to leave it and go for something else because you are yet to get the experience, full experience of the product. Similarly, if its price goes down, because you have no experience, much experience on the product, you will not go for demanding more. That much. Means maybe you'll be decreasing the demand, but not that much, so that it will be more elastic. Okay. So we can say in the time period, longer the time period, then the product will be more elastic as compared to the shorter the time. So these are the few points which influence the price elasticity of demand. It is there in the slide. All the points are there in the slide. It is not explained, but this is the way of explaining narrowly defined market and the broadly defined market, and availability of substitute, nature of a commodity, all these things will be discussed. So is it clear now? Now we'll move on to the next concept called supply.
So this longer time period will be less elastic or more elastic?
More elastic, more elastic.
Okay.
Because we have already experienced the product nicely. If at least price goes up, then we'll see a leave it. It is not that you are habituated with that. You are addicted to that. It is not like that. If it is there, then it will be inelastic. It is that you at least you have used the product for enough time so that you have complete knowledge about the product. As compared to you, I am using it for last couple of days only. So I have not studied the product yet properly. In that case, maybe I will not change because I am yet to know the product better. So without knowing the product better, how can I go for purchasing a second piece, third piece if its price goes down? Okay. Then supply. As we have already discussed demand, and we have also in the beginning of this chapter we discussed that demand is necessary because in spite of having a good product, if the people are not demanding, customers are not demanding, then the success is not there for the farm. But demand will be there if actual supply is there. So therefore, supply will have to study. But this concept of supply is a very small concept as compared to demand. Why? Uh, in demand, what we discussed, from starting from definition of demand till thereafter demand, determinants of demand, law of demand, demand schedule, demand curve, then exception of demand law. Then we discussed about changing demand, changing quantity demanded, elasticity of demand. So many things were discussed. But here only maybe in a couple of 10, 20 minutes or 30, maximum 30 minutes should be finishing this one. It is nothing but we can define the supply, then the law of supply, then supply schedule, supply curve, and elastic supply. These are the content of the supply concept. Because you know the demand in detail, then knowing supply is not at all difficult because exactly the process is same. Only the relationship between price and supply will be just changing. What it was in demand, price and demand, the reverse will be here. Okay. So we can define supply as that part of stock which is offered for sale at varied prices. Supply is that part of stock which is offered for sale at varied prices. What is this concept? When you produce a product, if you are a very small producer, maybe from the production point itself, we will release the product, supply the product to the market. But those who are having a reasonable size for production unit, they don't do that. From the production point, they send in the product to the output to the warehouse. From the warehouse, they release the product or release the quantum as per the requirements in the market. Okay. So therefore, stock is, you can supply is a subset of stock. Supply is a subset of stock. At best, supply will be equal to stock. Means supply is equal to stock. If at all quantity produced, suppose it was 100 and the quantity supplied is equal to 100. Then we'll say that both are same. But in no way it will be, supply will be greater than stock. It is not possible at all. And very often we'll find supply is less than the stock. Okay. At best it will happen, ideally. Very often it happens, it doesn't happen. Okay. Why so? Suppose quantity produced is 100 and quantity supplied, why it is less than 100? You can say, what is the possible reason behind this? The sellers ideally prefer to supply less the estimated demand in the market, and as a result, the quantity produced is greater than the quantity supplied, or quantity supplied is less than the quantity produced. Any point? So could you follow my question?
So please repeat the question.
As a producer, I'm producing 100 units of my product. So quantity produced is 100. Why I'm supplying less than 100, let's say 80 or 90. Suppose quantity supplied is 90. How it happened?
Less demand.
No, demand is not there. No, demand, you have estimated the demand, forecasted the demand. On that basis, you produced 100. Now you are sending supplying 90. So you are telling that probably you are coming to know that demand will be less. Demand has not, in a real sense, it has not happened. Demand will take place after the product goes to the market. So probably you are anticipating a fall in the demand. Is it so?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So anybody else? There could be multiple reasons behind this. One point he has told that suppose generally what happens.
Sir, another is.
Yeah.
Sorry. Please continue.
So it could so happen that before producing any quantum of output, what we generally do as a producer, do market survey, market research. So the company concerned did market research and got to know that 100 will be demanded. So accordingly, it produced 100. But sometimes what happens, maybe market survey goes wrong, maybe the product market survey time and the product release time, if there is a great gap of time, lapse of time, then probably the lifestyle may change, difference may change, many things may change. So I am just asking, what could the possible reason behind the gap between what quantity produced and quantity supplied? So you are telling something this time?
Sir, I was telling that the seller, the one who is selling, he may have forcefully held the stock, like 10% of the stock forcefully holding. Is giving the 90% so that the demand may rise in the upcoming future. If the demand increases, the price of the commodity will also increase. He may be wasting the 10%, he may not be using it, he may be wasting it, but forcefully holding the stock will result in increasing the price of the commodity in future, which will help him to make a bigger amount of profit in the future.
Then as a
Maybe
producer,
that's why he's selling 90 and holding 10.
Then the question is, why you produced 100? If you are ready to waste also, why you produced 100? You could have produced 90.
Sir, I do not know what is the commodity. Maybe it's a commodity which runs for a long time. Suppose it's a plastic commodity which is wasted. But if it is a fish, suppose the thing that I'm producing that is a fish that gets wasted after 1 or 2 months,
You can
then
store
it was
it.
a commodity. That's why this example.
Good,
Yes.
good. So his point is the commodity. While you supply any commodity as a producer, we always try to make the market favorable to us. So his point was that one. The producer, the seller, is supplying less in spite of having stock in the warehouse, supplying less deliberately just to make the market in favor of him. If demand is suppose 100 and supply is falling short by 10 and 90, then customers will be competing among themselves to get the product. That will push the price to be up. Good point. It's intentionally the producer did that one, and he also added if the product is durable product, then he'll be storing it and releasing it at some future date. And if the product is perishable, even it is going to be wasted, he will allow to waste rather instead releasing it to the market and getting the bad effect, negative effect of that one, their price will come down. So that is his view. Then any other point? So two good points you have already told. Any other points? There is also a possibility that output produced 100, you are releasing 90 means 10 maybe the waste product, waste material, damaged. Maybe after the product being produced, in the process of transiting from one place to another, transferring from one place to another, maybe production point to warehouse, yeah, warehouse to the transportation facility. In between, if there are some wastage, then you cannot send 100. Although you have produced 100 and you are ready to send 100, you are sending 90. So that is a constraint. And many a times what the problem is, and particularly this type of control in supply does not happen in case of agricultural output. So agricultural output, the farmers don't have that much control over the supply, because what they do generally, they produce the product, same crop in the harvesting season. So almost all the farmers produce that one, and they don't have any warehouse type of thing to keep it, store it, and they are having multiple works to do even during harvesting. Therefore, what they do, once it is harvested, immediately they will sell it off at that point only. That point means that field only. So generally, the supply they cannot keep in order, and moreover, the agricultural output is not under the control of the producer. Many factors are there which are external, exogenous, and that influence the output, like the climatic conditions, monsoon. Many things are there which controls, which regulates the, or which affects the productivity. So what we cited, the example, it is not related to agriculture at all. It is related to manufacturing units, where the producers know uh, in advance details about their performance. They know that this amount we are going to produce, we will be producing that much, and maybe while releasing the product, they think that in between if time passed by and people's preference changed, and demand has not been going to be generated like this, then they will release less. Okay, so that we can define supply in this way. So, like demand, supply of any product depends upon many things. Like you can say the price, commodities price, raw material price, then we can say climatic condition, the political setup, because if the government is not favorable to the particular type of sector, industry, because maybe you are having your capital, but some items are there, some infra are there, which you cannot build up your home. You have to depend on government, like power, like water supply. So many things are there, road. Okay. So therefore, it depends on many things. But here in this particular concept, we'll be discussing keeping other things constant, the relationship between price and quantity supply, the way we did in the law of supply, the demand. So there is a law of supply. As per which other things remaining constant, as ceteris paribus, exactly same pattern. There is a direct proportional relationship between price and quantity supply. Means if price increases, quantity supplied will increase, and if it decreases, it will decrease. Direct relationship. It means we can say here Q means quantity supplied. I am not putting S, subscript S, but while you are writing both Q demand and supply, you will mention QD and QS. QD and QS, and because I am here using only for supply, I am mentioning Q, and that Q I will introduce quantity supply. Okay, suppose P is 10, quantity supply is 100, and P is 20, and suppose 150, 30, let's say. Here price is increasing from 10 to 20 to 30, and supply is increasing from 100 to 150 to 250. Okay. So there is a direct relationship. Both are moving in same direction, increase. So this is called as what? Supply schedule. Supply tabular presentation of supply law is supply schedule. Okay. So can you give some exceptions, like in spite of increasing price, supply is not increasing? Yeah, in spite of decreasing price, supply is not decreasing. As per demand law, this
So
is
can you
the
repeat once? Can you repeat?
Yeah.
Can you repeat once?
The situations, you have to mention the situations wherein, in spite of increase in price, supply is not increasing. And in spite of fall in price, supply is not falling. But as per the law of supply, there is direct relationship, means price increase means supply will increase, price decrease means supply will decrease. But you will be mentioning the situations, yeah, commodities wherein, in spite of increase in price, supply is not increasing. In spite of decrease in price, supply is not decreasing. So could you follow the question? Means,
Yes, sir, I did, but I can say one for the increase, not for the decrease.
okay, what is that for increase?
So increase is a lack of infrastructure.
Lack of infrastructure. Okay, means to produce more quantum of output, you need a infra.
Yes, I have increased the price, but I need more supply. But for that, I need more factories because all my five factories, suppose that are there in the province or in the city, they're working at their 100% efficiency. But to increase the supply, I need more factories, and for that, I need funds, and I'm running low on funds.
Very
So
good, very
then,
good,
it's
very good. So that point is pointing to this one, excess capacity. In our economics, we called it that excess capacity. There are two terms related to the capacity. One is the optimal capacity, what you was pointing to, optimal capacity, and second is the real capacity that you are using. Suppose my units optimal capacity is 100, means 100 units of output to be produced. I am now producing, reality is I am producing 80. Then this gap will be called as excess capacity. So there is excess capacity with my unit which can be utilized for augmentation of the output, enhancement of the output. He said that suppose he is having some thoughts which are operating in at the optimal level. Means whatever optimal capacity is there for each firm, they are producing at that level. There is no scope for expansion. So if at all price increases, in spite of his intention to supply more, he cannot do so because his his units are operating at optimal capacity. Good point. So excess capacity. Anything else? There must be excess capacity with the firms in order to increase the supply if price goes up. While we are talking about this
sir,
supply,
another can be say,
hmm,
another can say the price may be increased, the supply is
hmm.
not being increased because there is not so much demand.
But how price increased?
So price, suppose they thought that the like I'm saying the gold, suppose
Hmm,
let's
hmm,
just talking about gold. There
hmm,
was 50 years back there was a large amount of gold was found in one city,
hmm,
and in that province the price of the gold decreased
hmm,
substantially.
hmm,
But 50 years later,
hmm,
for the 50 years, all the families have bought gold materials. 50 years later, a new company comes and makes a setup in the province to sell gold.
hmm.
And they thought they were not well informed, and they thought that let's make a good amount of profit over here because these people also I can sell them gold. But the problem is that all these families in this province they already had that gold. They have already bought the gold, which was found in that province 50 years ago. So I'm trying to say that if there is no demand and the MNC is being misinformed and they thought that increasing the price of the commodity will make it look valuable to the population, which will lure, which will attract the elite section of the society to buy them.
Okay,
You know,
yeah, what you
human mentality. You told earlier that
yeah, yeah, what you
people try
cited
to
that.
get what they want to have.
Yes, yes, I got the point. What you cited that is related to the pricing strategy in the control of the seller. If at all seller is having that discretion, that cushion to increase or decrease the price, and because of his strategy of a price hike it is there, then probably you are true. But while we talk about market equilibrium, generally price is determined by the market. And in the market, one individual, one seller can influence the price if he or she is having monopoly power, either single seller. Yeah, if he is not a single seller, multiple sellers are there, but he is having supremacy. Supremacy means what? Among the 10 sellers, he is grabbing the maximum market share, maybe 70-80% market share he is grabbing, and other 10 players are grabbing remaining part. But generally, price is determined by the market, that too by the market forces of demand and supply. Means demand and supply together determines the price. If there is increase in the price, it means what? In the market, the product is doing well. The product is doing well. It means product's demand is there. So that price, that increase in price is not generated by this particular producer. It is rather out of the market interaction. So in that case, we can say if actual price has increased, means demand is there. So your point is maybe demand coming down, but demand is there. That's why price has gone up. What you cited is a good point. If at all you presume that this hike in price is due to the producer, seller. Okay. Any other point? Anybody? While you talk about supply, if it is market supply of a particular product, and if the economy is in full employment, what does it mean? It means whatever factors are there in the economy, they are employed, they are getting the job at the existing enterprise. Okay. For example, suppose in our industry, we are talking about one product, let's say laptop. In the laptop industry, let's say 100 players are there, 100 firms are there. And for this laptop industry, a particular skill set is required. Okay. Whoever is having the skill set to work in the laptop industry, laptop firms, they are engaged now. Now demand for laptop went up, for some reasons price is going up. So can the supply be increased? Because here the economy is in full employment. Economy means the sector is in full employment. So the economy as sector is in full employment, then for expansion, for producing more output, definitely you need to apply something more, maybe capital, more capital is required, more worker is required, maybe. So that you may not do. As an individual seller, you can supply more, even in full employment. How? I said, if it is individual supply, then in spite of having full employment in the economy, you can raise the supply, your supply. How? By extracting some of the factors from your competitors. Like some workers are there in your nearby, in one of the firms which is a competitor of yours, and you are offering more wage to them, more salary to them, and they came to you. So because of their inclusion in the system, you are producing more, so your supply increases. But at the same time, the supply of that person is going down. So in a market supply point of view, it won't be increased if at all there is full employment in the economy. Okay, so full employment and excess capacity, these are 2 points which restrict the sellers to go for more supply in spite of having high price. And you are telling that in case of price supply low, that point you don't have, but you are having that point, like if the commodity in question is a perishable commodity. The commodity in question is a perishable commodity. Its price came down in the market. You cannot reduce the supply because you cannot store it. You have to sell now. So for selling that one, even you have to sell at a lesser price. Means supply is not getting changed, not reduced, in spite of fall in the price. So is it clear now? There are some situations wherein the supply may not change as per the law of supply as price changes. Means as price increases, supply may not increase. if price decreases, supply may not decrease. So this is law of supply and supply schedule. And if you plot all this data, what you are mentioning here on a plane, you will get a supply curve like this. Here quantity supplied, here price. It means 2 points we have traced, P0, P1, PS0. So both are moving in the same direction. So supply curve is sloping upward from left to right. Okay, so this is all about supply. Then there is a concept called elasticity of supply, exactly same as elasticity of demand. Elasticity of it does not have many methods like the EP. Here we'll be only analyzing, discussing on the percentage method and of course on the differentiation method. ES is degree of responsiveness. We can define it as degree of responsiveness of quantity supply of any commodity due to change in the price of it. Means if price changes, how the supply of that commodity behaves is the central theme of this concept of elasticity. Means we can define make the formula as percentage change in quantity supplied by percentage change price. We can define it as degree of responsiveness of supply of a commodity due to change in its price. Other things remain constant. So in formula you can write like this: percentage change in quantity supplied by percentage change in price. So it will be del Q by Q into 100 by del P where Q means you will introduce this one, otherwise it will be confused that it is demand or supply. Q stands for quantity supply. And if you del Q by del P, and if you go by the algebraic sign of this ES, it will be positive because price, demand, supply, EQ cannot be negative, and del P and del Q both will be of same sign. If del P is positive, del Q will be positive. If del Q is negative, del Q is negative. So it will be positive values. But in exceptional situations, it may be negative also. So this is all about the supply function in brief. Okay, one more thing we can also say. Suppose Q is equal to 50 plus 2P. I'm writing here plus Y because supply. There is direct relationship with the price and quantity supply. You are asked to find ES or P is equal to 2. Then what we'll do? ES is equal to del Q by del P to P by Q. Same formula what we had used in the percentage method of EP, but we are simply mentioning Q as the quantity supply. dq by dp is equal to 2. Is constant 0 and the power will be 2. Then for P is equal to 2, Q is equal to 54. 50 into 4, 54. So there ES will be dq by dp into 2 into 2 by, so that is our elasticity supply. Is it clear?
Yes, sir, clear.
Because the same thing, same pattern we are following, nothing much difference is there, and it is not a very big one. Only because you are discussing supply, you should have some knowledge that we are discussing. Then we will move on to the important part also of this particular chapter, that is the market equilibrium. market equilibrium will go first. Yeah, revenue. No, will it go first revenue? As a producer, I produced the output. I supplied it to the market. I sold the product. So whatever return I get monetarily by selling the product is the revenue what I receive. So we can say total revenue for me as a producer, as a seller is the uh, money that I receive by selling the output. So that can be, so total revenue can be defined as P into Q. Price, at what price I have sold and how many units I have sold. P into Q means price per unit into quantity sold. Q means quantity sold. But while you follow this formula, it means you are presuming that price is same for all the units. Price is same for all the units. Suppose 100 units you had produced, you had sold, all 100 units have been sold in same price. But sometimes, many a times you find that the first few units are sold in a price, at a price, then the second lot is in a different price, third lot different price, and it happens very often with vegetables. No? We've seen if you go to the market in the beginning, the price is very high, and as time passes by, if you go towards the end of the day, towards the night, to the market, you'll be getting even 50% of the price what it was charged in the daytime. So same unit, the same price for each unit is not happening every time. So in that case, TR will be defined as summation I is equal to 1 to n pi qi. The same formula, but if the price difference is there, then this formula will be applied. But here in this context, we will be presuming that same price throughout the units. Then in revenue concept, we will have two more concepts: average revenue, marginal revenue. Average revenue is total revenue by output sold. Okay, and if you compare these two, just see, we wrote that AR is equal to TR by Q. This one we write, and if you reduce this one, it will be P is equal to TR by Q. TR by Q. That means what? It implies that P is equal to AR. Okay, it's clear. Average revenue is per unit revenue, and it is nothing but total revenue divided by quantity sold. So we wrote in this one, AR is equal to TR by Q. But here also we had the idea that total revenue is equal to price into output. So here if you keep P in the left side, P is equal to TR by Q. So right hand side both writes the same. So it means P is equal to AR. So could you follow this revenue concept, TR and AR?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we don't have much time now. We'll stop here. Next class we'll start marginal revenue. This concept we have not discussed because it's important concept. So that will start in next class. Then we'll be doing some examples related to TR, AR, and MR on tabular values and also through equations. Then we'll move to the market equilibrium. Okay, so just point it. Marginal revenue will start. Then we'll move on to examples, tabular values, and equational values. 5007,
Present, sir.
138, 171,
Present, sir.
237, 273,
Present, sir.
Present, sir.
308,
Present, sir.
534,
Present, sir.
622,
Present, sir.
652,
Present, sir.
768,
Present, sir.
1053, 1158, 1274,
Present, sir.
510,
Present, sir.
533, 561,
Present, sir.
565, 581.
Sir,
Present,
565
sir.
network is super.
Which one?
565 present. Network is super.
596,
Present, sir.
598,
So she's present. She's available.
599,
Present, sir.
617, 746.
Present, sir. 670.
Which one?
Sir, 1617 present.
792,
Present, sir.
799, 821,
Present, sir.
855. Okay. 855, 864,
Present, sir.
970,
Present, sir.
2016, 2039.
सर शी इज प्रेजेंट सर, तो उसका अभी डिस्कनेक्ट हुआ सर, लिखिए
2039, yes, 16,
नहीं सर 2016 का सर,
16. 39,
हाँ सर, सर 39 चैट बॉक्स में लिखा सर प्रेजेंट,
40,
सर 2040 प्रेजेंट सर,
246,
Present, sir.
406,
Present, sir.
411. Somebody may refer to the chat box because I am unable to see that one. 446,
Present, sir.
61,
Present, sir.
305,
Present, sir.
617,
Present, sir.
637,
Present, sir.
649, 669,
Yes, sir.
673,
Present, sir.
677,
Present, sir.
679,
Present, sir.
682,
Yes, sir.
683,
Present, sir.
709,
Present, sir.
720,
Present, sir.
722,
Present, sir.
725,
Present, sir.
731,
Present, sir.
739,
Present, sir.
821,
Present, sir.
823,
Present, sir.
853,
Present, sir.
863,
Present, sir.
203,
Present, sir.
205, 210,
Present, sir.
Present, sir. 205.
212,
Present, sir.
213,
Present, sir.
218,